If I had to start my podcast over in 2026, I would stop trying to do podcasting right, and I would start trying to make it more findable and sustainable. If I stripped everything back, so no team, no tools, no momentum, I wouldn't try to do more, but I would do a lot less on purpose. Today, I'm going to share with you how I would grow a podcast in 2026 if I were to start over from scratch. Let's get into it. Hello. Welcome back to this week's episode of As It Relates to Podcasting. I'm Simona Costantini, host of the show. Thanks for being here. And before we get too far into our conversation, I want to share with you that my podcast Success Vault is open for enrollment. The link for that is in the episode notes below. It is an incredible community. And in this community, we dive deep on all things podcast growth, launch, monetization, strategy. Every question that you have for your podcast gets answered in this community. I love it so much because it's a mastermind style membership. And there's no commitment. You can just show up every single month. There's no commitment to, lock your price in for a certain amount of time or anything like that. So if you're looking for some more support, if you're looking for some community, and you're looking for a group of people who understand exactly how it feels to be podcasting every single week, the challenges that come with it, and the struggles of maybe not being able to find your audience or grow your show or grow your audience, this is the place for you. So check out the link in the episode notes below. I don't want to take up too much time with this today because I really want to talk about how I'd grow a podcast today in 2026 if I had to start over from scratch. And the first thing that I want to share with you is that I would simplify everything. I feel like we live in a time where everything is so complicated. We have to overcomplicate the tech, overcomplicate the message, overcomplicate everything. And I just want you to think about simplifying, okay? Let's try focusing on one platform first instead of trying to be everything to 5 different platforms. So the first thing that I would do is pick one primary discovery engine based off of the format of the show. If you have, a solo teaching style podcast with topics that are highly searchable, or maybe those episodes are a tiny bit longer, I would pick YouTube, right? Because YouTube is very much a search engine. It is very much a place where people come to search for the answers that they are looking for. If your podcast is more, interview heavy, relationship driven, and so on, then I would obviously pick the audio side, Apple and Spotify. You got to know where your content is going to perform the best. So if you're going to pick an interview style podcast and you're going to put it on YouTube, you need to know and understand the best practices of editing and all of the other things to keep the engagement high on the episode. So that's kind of why I'm saying building one single platform first and building that workflow around that platform's requirements, because they have different title styles, they have different lengths, they have different description formats, different chapters, and so on. So the platforms are similar, but they are also very, very different. It's not to say that you can't repurpose your content onto the other platforms as outputs, right? But you're doing this as the output after the fact. So you're not doing this so much as the strategy, you're doing this as the output. So focusing in on one platform first and then expanding from there based on the optimization that you have done for that particular platform. I would rather master one platform and get really good at that one platform than be kind of a ghost on all of the different platforms. So you want to think about, where is your audience living and where are they searching for your content? If they are primarily on YouTube, if it is more search-based, that makes the most amount of sense. If they are longer episodes, if they are interview style episodes, you may want to put them on audio first, and then you can cross the platforms afterwards. But just really think about, where is your audience, and simplifying where your output is going. The next thing is remembering that your podcast is for one clear audience. It's not for everybody. Not every single person is going to watch or listen to your podcast. So you want to have a sentence that kind of defines who this show helps, right? This show helps a specific person solve a specific problem so that they can have a specific outcome. And then what you could also do is create a not for sentence, which is, this show is not for X, Y, and Z person doing X, Y, and Z thing. Because when we're trying to be everything to every single person, that is honestly where we start to drop off. That is where people stop being able to pay attention and stop understanding what your message is, because they don't really resonate with it anymore. think of these two different statements and then using that language in your show name, if possible, in your trailer, and then every episode intro and anytime you talk about the show. And here's a little thought and like a little cue for you. If you can't name the exact struggle that your audience is having this week, your content will start to drift and it will stop resonating with them. The content needs to be relevant to the people who are listening to it, which is why understanding your audience is so important. But yes, there's also the piece in the side of creating the show for you, creating it as an extension of your message and your voice and your purpose and your mission. Those are really important things. You need to find the intersection of them and how they blend together. One thing that I like to do, and I started doing this in my content and it started working really, really well, is having one main goal per episode. So I just have one clear thought, one clear single promise of each episode before recording. So I tell my listener, I tell you exactly what you're getting from the episode before you dive in and before you commit to listening to a whole episode, because I want the content to be relevant to you. You're obviously clicking play because you're wanting the solution to the question that you either knowingly have or subconsciously have. Thinking about how do we tailor and structure in that content so that the content doesn't become messy, right? And we can very easily segment and cut out things that don't support the overall promise of the episode and the conversation you're having that particular week. And then also restating the purpose of the episode, the promise of this specific episode, and then giving the person who's listening one next step to do, not 1,500, okay? One episode, one job. The second kind of category of things that I would do differently is building habits before the ambition. When I first started my very first podcast, I was so gung-ho. I just created all of the episodes all the time. I had a weekly posting schedule and so on. So this is kind of, where you have to think about what makes the most sense for you. You need to have a publishing schedule that you can actually keep. So choose a cadence that you can very easily maintain for 12 weeks without having to go into this like crazy hero mode of like, I have to get everything done and I don't have any time and everything is stressful and so on. You have to also enjoy the journey because creating a podcast and bringing it to life truly is a labor of love. Like it takes a lot of intention, a lot of time, a lot of energy, whether it's your recording, booking guest interviews, communicating with guests, figuring out what your solo topics are going to be, and so on. Those things take time. And then the next thing that I would do way from the beginning that I would do differently is batch recording your episodes. And this is something that I started to implement in this podcast as it relates to podcasting. I'll sit down and I'll record a couple of episodes or a few episodes in, a 1 to 2 to 3 hour time block and not have them as scattered sessions all over the place because this helps me be able to concentrate in the content. I can get all of my thoughts together. And then when I sit down to record, I know exactly what I am recording. And it has been so helpful, let me tell you, because this helps me hit my target release date. In the past, I have on both of my podcasts fallen off the wagon, right? On both of my podcasts, I've taken a hiatus. And it happens because life happens, because things come up, because maybe we didn't record enough content in advance and now something really crazy is happening or you're traveling or you're going somewhere, whatever. But you need to have that release date that aligns with your life, not by somebody else's advice, not based off of what somebody else is telling you to do. The release date has to make sense for you. The launch date has to make sense for you. So when I think about this topic overall and what I would do differently, making sure that you have episodes that are batched and that you have enough content to sustain you through is really important because you have no idea what can come out of the blue, and why and how you'll be so grateful that you have that content recorded. Having a consistent practice, being consistent in your work is not just discipline, okay? It's creating a life by design. You create a little bit of system, a little bit of process around what you're doing so that you can have more time, more freedom, more sustainability, and everything else that you are creating. Also, I would simplify my production stack. You don't need all of these crazy fancy tools. We really, really, really do live in a world today where everyone is telling you need to have this camera, this mic, you need this software, and da-da-da, and whatever. I want you to dial it back. And I was actually thinking about this today, even way before I recorded this podcast episode, how much simpler my tech stack has gotten. When I'm recording this podcast episode, I have my one mic, which is my Shure mic, and it's the MV7. And then I have my iPhone that connects to my computer as my camera with a little camera holder on top. This is night and day difference from what I used to do when I would record. I had all the crazy DSLR camera, I had the angles, I had the softbox lighting and all that. And all of those things are amazing and they are fantastic and they serve a purpose for specific people for specific shows. What I learned over the years is that this is not sustainable for me. I travel around way too much. I have so much stuff going on a day-to-day and I, travel between two places all the time. So I needed a stack that was simpler. I needed something that I could just take with me and go. So I want that for you too. Simplify your production stack. You don't need all these fancy tools. It is not required. At the end of the day, you need a good mic, you need a quiet room, and you need consistency in how it looks. That's the basic bare minimum if you really want to get started. The next thing in simplifying your tech stack is using one editing flow. Figure out what works best for you. Stop switching tools mid-season, mid-weekly release, and so on. It doesn't mean don't try the new tools. It doesn't mean don't try something new. But what it does mean is that you don't always need to have something new and something different because the editing tool could be simpler, could be more helpful. And also if it's creating you more chaos, maybe that's not the system or the tool for you. The next thing that I would also do is kind of creating a little bit of a checklist. Your export settings, what is the volume of your podcast episode? How do you name your files? And what are your uploading steps? Kind of have that all mapped out to make your life so much simpler. And the last part that I kind of want to touch on here is the idea of repeatable formats. And this helps you reduce decision fatigue. We want things that are engaging. We want things that are exciting. We want to be able to have an episode that really resonates with the person that is listening. And we want to test different formats and different styles and so on. But if having different segments and having different formats is the thing that is blocking you from getting your show off the ground, pick something that is simple. Pick something that is repeatable, right? Choose 2 to 3 repeatable episode formats that you can do every single week, bi-weekly or what have you. So for example, like 3 mistakes and then the fix. Here's my step-by-step process. Here's a case study breakdown. And if you are going to do segments, just keep them consistent so that you can record them faster. It's plug and play. You know exactly what to do. A lot of the clients that we work with will use a reusable outline or a reusable template, and they'll kind of fill it in every single time, every single episode, so that there's consistency across the different episodes and they know what they are creating, okay? They know what they're bringing to the air. And then the last part here, this is not something that I considered when I first started my podcast, but I would really start to let the data guide different decisions. And this to me means watching which episodes are retaining your listeners, right? Track when they start to drop off. Your longer intro, are you rambling midsection? Are they not making it through all the way to the end? Is the takeaway unclear so they're not, opting into whatever next thing that you're doing? And you want to note the episodes that people finish in full or close to full. Those are your winners. Those are the topics that people want to hear more from you, they want to learn more about, and so on. So for example, on this podcast, I learned that people liked my solo episodes better. And then I learned that people liked my launch content very, very much, tech content very, very much, and growth content very much. So I'm like, okay, well, how do I create more content that's about that in different ways, different angles, so that people can actually get value from my episodes every single week? And I'm not guessing what they like. Take a look at your data. Take a look at the stats because it will tell you what people are listening to. Then from there, you can start to see where people drop off. If people start to leave after 2 or 3 minutes, it's not necessarily the topic that could be a problem, but maybe it's your delivery style. Maybe it's the way the hook was done. Maybe it's the way that the intro was done. So then we look at, how do we start to tighten up that intro? How do we start to get people past that threshold so they can really get into the content? Because ultimately what you want to do is you want to double down on what gets shared and what gets saved. When people share content, it's because they see themselves in your content. They're like, oh my gosh, this person gets me. This is me. This is the problem that I have. And then you can double down on what is already working to bring that to life even more. But ultimately, at the end of the day, the data is going to help you stop guessing and start responding to your content. People talk all the time about, I want to build an audience. I want to know who my audience is and so on. Why don't you ask them? Who are they? Have a conversation with them. I have a friend and client that we did some strategy work together who does this very, very well. He meets people in real life who listen to his podcast. He'll take a picture with them. He will have a conversation with them and he'll make it a really exciting deal. And I think that is absolutely so genius because you are building that relationship. But ultimately, what people tell you, the comments that people leave you, the DMs, the search terms, all the things that people look for when it comes to your show, you can take that and you can now turn that into episodes using the exact phrasing that your audience is using. And then it helps you build that monthly rhythm, publishing, reviewing data, adjusting, and repeating. Ultimately, differently. If I were to start over and do this all over again, I would stop chasing more. I would chase clarity, repeatability, and retention, because the shows that are going to grow in 2026 and beyond are not the ones that are necessarily the loudest. They're the ones that are the easiest to find, the easiest to follow and stick with, and the easiest to relate to. So I would love to know your comments, your thoughts. Please drop them in the comments if you're watching this on YouTube. If you're on Spotify watching this, drop them in the comments there too. If you're listening to this on an audio platform, just send me a message. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'd love to hear what you think about this topic. And tell me, do you want more? Do you want more content like this? So thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. I will see you same time, same place next week. Bye for now.